call me a softie, but thinning seedlings is one of my least favorite things about gardening. It always just pains me when I think about the fact that I'm sowing these seeds, I'm coaxing them out of the ground, only to come back a week later and kill off sometimes more than half of what I planted originally. There's got to be a better way, and that's what we're going to do today with 3 simple ingredients: water, flour, and bath tissue. Today, we're making seed tape. The idea behind seed tape is super straightforward. Think about the information that comes with your seed packets. It tells you what your seed planting depth should be and how far apart you should place each of the seeds. It also tells you how many days to expect between sowing and germination, and how far apart you should space your rows and how tall the plants are going to get. It also tells you one of the things that pains me most about gardening, and that's the plant spacing after thinning. What that means is you're going to intentionally be sowing seeds that once they germinate, you're just going to rip them out of the ground. What seed tape does is it provides a method for you to be able to sow your seeds at the proper distance from one another, be confident that they're going to germinate with the right spacing, so you don't have to thin out any of your seedlings and you don't have to waste any seeds. This pack right here of Detroit dark red beets, there's probably about 30 seeds in this pack. And you could very easily get through this just in one fell swoop of sowing by broadcasting the seeds. But if you create seed tape for these seeds, not only are you planting exactly the right amount of seeds that you need, but you're also saving additional seeds for succession planting. The ingredients needed to make seed tape are super minimal. In addition to your seeds, really all you need in order to get started is water and flour to make a glue, and then a thin paper. I use bath tissue. You can use paper towel or regular tissue if you want. Really any paper that is thin enough to biodegrade once you plant it in your soil. The seed tape that I'm making today are 2 types of beets and 2 types of radish. So I'm going to have 4 strips of seed tape. And I already know where I'm going to put these. I know which bed these are going to go in, and that bed is 4 feet by 2 feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out 4 sections, 3.5 feet long each, of this bath tissue so I can make seed tape for my 2 radishes and my 2 beets. It's super easy to measure out your seed tape. Just grab a tape measure and get it to the length that you need it to be. Then take a fresh roll of bath tissue and roll it out the length that you need. Now because this bath tissue is 2-ply, I'm only going to measure out 2 3.5 foot long strips. Then I'll separate the plies from each other and I'll have my 4 sheets of seed tape. And once you have your sheets all measured out, you want to fold each sheet in half lengthwise. What this will do is it'll provide a crease in the center so there's consistent positioning for the next step, which is marking where your seeds are going to go. Now that your strips are measured out and creased, you want to mark along the strips where you're going to be placing your seeds. Now just look at the back of the seed packet. It'll tell you exactly what the spacing should be after thinning. For radishes, it's 1 inch. For beets, it's 2 to 3 inches. So that means that for 2 of these strips, which each are going to have radish on them, I can get about 40 to 42 radish seeds on each strip. For the beet strips, I'll be getting between 14 and 20 beet seeds each. If you want to give them more room, that's absolutely fine. Just let this be your general guide for spacing your seeds. Now, if you're going to use this method to grow beets, remember that beet seeds are multi-germ, which means that there are anywhere between 3 and 5 little beet plants inside of each beet seed. So when your beets start to germinate, you'll see multiple little sprouts come out of the same area. Don't worry about that. You didn't make a mistake. That's how beets grow naturally. Where the problem would come is if you overcrowded your beet seeds by planting multiple multi-germ seeds all in a big clump next to each other. That's why seed tape is such a great method, especially for sowing beets. Remember that crease that we made? That's where your seeds are going to go. So when you mark your strips of seed tape, mark along the crease of each strip. Now that the strips are all marked, it's time to make our glue. And we're just going to use pretty much equal parts water and all-purpose flour to make a slurry that acts like a glue to adhere our seeds to our paper. You just want to make sure that your glue isn't too thin so it ends up like you're pouring water onto your paper. That's going to cause things to tear. It's not going to be a good thing. You also don't want it to be too thick. If it's too thick, it's going to make it really difficult to get it attached to the paper, and you risk ripping the paper. Remember, this is a single ply of very sensitive paper. This is perfect. Exactly the consistency that we're looking for. And now that our glue is ready, we want to take a toothpick and dip it into the glue and dot it onto each of the marks that we made across all of the strips of seed tape. Try not to be overly generous with the glue. Remember, super thin paper. We don't want to tear anything, and we don't want the paper to start absorbing the liquid from the glue. We really want just enough glue there so we can get to the next step, which is attaching the seeds to the paper. After getting some glue on each mark on the strip, I'll place a single seed on each drop of glue. And once all the seeds are placed, I'll fold the strip in half. This will secure the seeds and allow for storage. Once you have your seeds in place and your paper folded over, mark each of them so you know what they are, and then let them sit for an hour or two so the glue can fully dry. Now, once they're done drying, you can either store them for future sowing. This is actually a really great method for seed saving that you could do at the end of the year. Or if you're ready to sow, you can take these straight out into the garden and put them in your bed. Now, if you wanted to save these seeds for later, you could simply just take these strips and you could fold them into a manageable size and slide them into a zip top bag and set them aside. Or you can do what I do, which is actually roll them up. If you only had 1 or 2 strips, you could use something like this, right? A bath tissue roll. Because I have 4 strips, I'm going to use a paper towel roll. And what's great about this is it'll hold all 4 of these strips. And because I marked each strip, I'm not at any risk of not knowing what it is that I put onto this roll. To sew your homemade seed tape, it's as easy as unrolling the tape, digging a trench to the recommended depth on your seed packet, putting the seed tape into the trench, covering it up, and giving it a drink. Now, depending on the types of seeds that you put into your seed tape, that's going to determine what your germination timing is. For my radishes, I expect in 5 to 7 days I'll start to see some sprouts. A little bit longer for my beets, maybe 7 to 14 days. But this paper is not going to get in the way. Remember, it's super thin. It's also designed to break down in water. So as you place your seed tape into soil and you water it well, this seed tape is going to break down super quickly, allowing your seeds to germinate on schedule. Now, it's been just about a week since I planted the seed tape here in this bed, and we're already seeing germination from both of the varieties of radishes that I planted. And it's only going to be another week or so until we start to see the beets emerging as well. This really is a super cool method for sowing your seeds. You're actually saving a bunch of your seeds because you're not overplanting in your bed, and you don't have to worry about thinning out your seedlings once they start to emerge. And sure, you could do this by hand, individually placing the seeds, but what seed tape helps you do is measure out exactly the distance between the seeds that you need in order to space them out in your bed. That's one of the reasons I really love this method. It's a great way to prep for the growing season. You space out your seeds exactly the distance that they need to be spaced apart in their rows, and then you never have to worry about thinning out your seedlings once germination starts. What's great about this method is it's super affordable, and when you make your own seed tape, it's customizable. You get to choose how many seeds you put onto your seed tape, and you can mix and match seeds. You don't have to have the same thing on one roll of seed tape. Combine those benefits with the ease of storage and how easy it is to sew seed tape in your garden, and this method is a winner. I hope you found this to be a helpful way to keep you from becoming mass executioner in your garden this growing season. Give this method a shot and let us know how it worked out for you. Happy growing!